It's funny how a single moment can shatter your entire world. One minute, you're picking up your girlfriend's phone to skip a song. The next, you're staring at a string of messages that makes your heart stop. My girlfriend Sarah, who I thought was the love of my life, was cheating on me. The messages were from her work friend, Mark, and they were anything but professional. Reading them, I felt a cold wave of shock wash over me, followed by a searing, white-hot anger. My first instinct was to throw the phone against the wall, to scream, to confront her right then and there. But as I stood there, trembling with a mix of rage and heartbreak, a different idea began to form. A better idea. Instead of giving her the satisfaction of a dramatic, tear-filled fight, I decided to give her a breakup she'd never forget. Sarah was planning a big surprise party for my birthday in 2 weeks. The irony was almost too much to bear. She was inviting all our friends, our families, everyone who mattered to us. It was meant to be a celebration of me, of us. And so it would be, just not in the way she imagined. I put her phone back down, my face a mask of calm. For the next 2 weeks, I played the part of the loving, unsuspecting boyfriend. I helped her with party preparations, feigned excitement, and listened as she talked about our future. Inside, I was a storm of conflicting emotions. But on the outside, I was a silent, calculating machine, planning every detail of my final act. The night of the party arrived. The house was buzzing with laughter and music. Sarah, beaming, pulled me into the center of the living room. "Surprise!" everyone yelled. I smiled, a genuine smile for the first time in weeks, because the real surprise was yet to come. She handed me a beautifully wrapped gift. I took a deep breath. Showtime. "Thank you everyone for coming," I began, my voice steady. "And thank you, Sarah, for organizing all of this. You always go above and beyond." She blushed, basking in the praise. Before I open my gift, though, I have something I want to share. I projected my phone screen to the large TV on the wall. A hush fell over the room as a slideshow began. It started with photos of us, happy and in love. Then, the images were replaced by screenshots. Screenshots of her messages with Mark. Every sordid detail, every lie, every plan they made behind my back was displayed for all to see. The silence was deafening, broken only by a few gasps from the crowd. Sarah's face went from confusion to horror, her skin turning a pale, ghostly white. She looked at me, her eyes pleading, but I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a profound sense of emptiness. I turned to the crowd, my voice clear and final. "So the party's over, at least for us it is." I set her gift down, unopened, on a nearby table. Without another word, I turned and walked toward the door. I didn't look back. As I stepped out into the cool night air, leaving her to face the shocked and judgmental stares of our friends and family, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. It wasn't the revenge that brought me peace, but the closure. I was finally free. I never believed in revenge until Sarah made it an art form I had to master. Our breakup wasn't just a breakup, it was a public execution of my character. She paraded her new man around our old haunts, painting me as the villain, the one who couldn't handle her free spirit. I played my part beautifully, though. Every time she saw me, I was a mess, disheveled, drinking a little too much, a perfect portrait of a man shattered. She'd give me that pitying, triumphant smile, the one that said, "I won." That smile was my fuel. She thought she was watching the aftermath of a storm she'd created, but she had no idea she was standing at the epicenter of a hurricane I was about to unleash. She saw a broken man, which was exactly what I wanted her to see. The first phase of my revenge was subtle, almost surgical. I started with her social circle, the one she had so carefully curated. I had been a part of that world, and I knew its secrets. A quiet word here, an anonymous tip there. I forwarded an old, incriminating email from her work account to a rival colleague she despised. Nothing illegal, just professionally embarrassing. I accidentally let it slip to her best friend's fiancé that Sarah had called their engagement a desperate last-ditch effort. I was a ghost, a whisper in the wind, planting seeds of doubt and discord. Each action was a ripple in her perfect pond, too small to trace back to me, but collectively powerful enough to create a tidal wave. She was so busy enjoying her victory lap that she never once looked over her shoulder. Soon, her carefully constructed world began to fray at the edges, then unravel completely. The promotion she was so sure of went to that rival colleague. Her best friend suddenly stopped returning her calls, the engagement party invitation mysteriously never arriving. Other friends became distant, their excuses for not meeting up becoming flimsier by the day. She was an island, and the tide was pulling all her bridges back to shore. I watched from a distance as confusion turned to panic, then to a bitter, lonely despair. She would post vague, dramatic statuses online about fake friends and betrayal, completely oblivious to the architect of her misery. The queen was alone in her castle, its walls crumbling around her, and she had no idea why. The final act took place at our old favorite coffee shop, a place full of memories she had tainted. I arranged to be there, looking sharper than ever, calm and collected. When she walked in, she looked haggard, the triumphant glow long gone, replaced by a hollow-eyed exhaustion. She saw me, and her face was a mixture of shock and anger. She started to launch into a tirade about how I must be enjoying her misfortune, but I cut her off gently. "Misfortune?" I asked, taking a slow sip of my coffee. "This wasn't misfortune, Sarah. This was a consequence." I then laid it all out, piece by devastating piece. The email, the conversation with her friend's fiancé, every single move. Her face went from anger to disbelief, then to a horrifying, dawning comprehension. The color drained from her face as the full weight of her actions and my reactions crashed down on her. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't need to. The quiet truth was far more destructive. I stood up, left the money for my coffee on the table, and walked away, leaving her in the ruins of the world she had forced me to build for her. This wasn't about winning, it was about balance, and the scales were finally level. 3 months later, and I'm finally living the life I always dreamed of, a life she told me was impossible. My new apartment overlooks the city, the skyline a constant reminder of how far I've come. My business, once just a fragile idea she dismissed, is now thriving. Each new client a testament to the potential she never saw in me. I'm surrounded by friends who celebrate my wins, who push me to be better, and who genuinely believe in me. The emptiness she left has been filled with purpose, with laughter, and with a quiet confidence I thought I had lost forever. I wake up every morning not with a sense of dread, but with an excitement for what the day holds. The ghost of her memory no longer haunts my steps. Instead, my days are painted in the vibrant colors of newfound success and genuine happiness. I am whole again. Not because someone fixed me, but because I rebuilt myself from the ashes of our past. Then, just as the sun was setting, casting long shadows across my living room, my phone buzzed. It was her. Her message was a torrent of desperation, a stark contrast to the cold silence she had left me in. She painted a grim picture of her life without me, claiming her new world had crumbled into a bleak landscape of regret and loneliness. She said she was miserable, that every day was a painful reminder of what she had thrown away. She begged to see me, pleaded for a chance to explain, to apologize, to somehow rewind time to when we were us. Her words were a carefully crafted narrative of sorrow, designed to pull at the heartstrings she had so carelessly severed. She wanted forgiveness, a second chance, a return to the comfort of what was familiar, now that her greener pastures had turned to dust. We met at a quiet cafe, a neutral ground far from the memories we had built and destroyed. She launched into her speech, tears welling in her eyes as she spoke of her profound regret. She described her sleepless nights and her hollow days, her voice trembling with practiced misery. When she finished, a heavy silence hung between us. I took a slow sip of my coffee, my calmness a stark contrast to her storm of emotion. "I'm glad you've had time to reflect," I began, my voice even and steady. I told her I wasn't angry, just indifferent. I then revealed my secret, not with malice, but with the simple finality of truth. I told her about my new life, my success, and the peace I had found. And then I told her about Sarah, the woman who had walked into my life and saw not a broken man, but a man building his own empire. The woman who didn't just support my dreams, but became a part of them. Her face fell, the manufactured hope draining away to reveal raw, unfiltered shock. She stammered, trying to argue that what we had was real, that it deserved another chance. I gently shook my head, a small, sad smile on my lips. "What we had is a chapter in a book I've already finished reading," I said, placing a few bills on the table. "You chose to end our story, and I'm grateful for that. It forced me to start writing a much better one." I told her I wished her no ill will, but her part in my life was over. With that, I stood up and walked out of the cafe, leaving her sitting alone with the ghost of what we once were. I didn't look back. The evening air was crisp and cool, and as I walked into the embrace of the city lights, I felt nothing but the profound freedom of a story that had finally, truly reached its end. It all started on a rainy Tuesday, the kind of day that felt like a cliché, when my ex, Clara, called me out of the blue, her voice a ghost from a life I thought I had buried. We met at our old spot, a dimly lit cafe that held too many memories. I went there to finally close the chapter, to deliver the final, definitive no she'd been refusing to hear for months. She looked fragile, her eyes swollen from what I assumed were crocodile tears. She swore she had changed, that the person who shattered my trust was gone, replaced by someone who finally understood the gravity of her betrayal. Her words were a torrent of apologies, promises, and desperate pleas, each one designed to chip away at the walls I had so carefully constructed around my heart. She talked about our future, the one she had thrown away, painting a picture of redemption that sounded almost believable. For a moment, a flicker of the man who once loved her without question considered it. The air was thick with her perfume and regret, a suffocating combination that nearly broke my resolve. I steeled myself, ready to deliver the final blow, the words that would sever our connection for good. I opened my mouth to speak, but her raw vulnerability, the genuine tremor in her voice as she begged for one last chance, made me hesitate. This wasn't the defiant, unapologetic Clara I remembered from our last fight. This was someone broken, someone terrified. A part of me, the part I hated, felt a pang of pity. Was it weakness to feel for the person who had destroyed you? I wrestled with the impulse to comfort her, to offer a kindness she didn't deserve, all while knowing I had to stay firm to protect myself from another inevitable heartbreak. Just as I was about to speak, a harsh vibration broke the tense silence between us. Her phone, lying face down on the dark wood of the table, buzzed to life. The screen lit up, casting a cold blue glow on her pale face. My eyes were drawn to it, and in that split second I saw the preview of a message that changed everything. It wasn't a lover's text or a friend's check-in. It was a threat, cold and explicit. "You have 24 hours to get the money or he sees the video. Don't test me." The name of the sender was the same man she had told me she'd left me for. The one I had spent months hating with every fiber of my being. In that instant, the entire narrative shattered. The black and white story of betrayal I had been clinging to bled into a terrifying shade of gray. Her infidelity wasn't a simple choice. It was a symptom of something far darker, a coercive nightmare she had been trapped in. The tears in her eyes weren't for our lost love. They were tears of pure fear. My carefully plotted revenge, the righteous anger that had fueled me for so long, dissolved into a nauseating wave of shock and horror. She hadn't been cheating, she had been surviving. And I, in my ignorance, had been twisting the knife. It was in that moment, under the dim lights of a forgotten cafe, that I finally saw the real, terrifying truth of her final plea. My ex-girlfriend Sarah called me in a panic, her voice trembling with what sounded like genuine fear. She told me a wild story about a former colleague who was blackmailing her, threatening to release fabricated, damaging information unless she paid him off. She claimed she was broke and terrified, and I was the only person she could turn to. I listened patiently, feigning sympathy, and told her I'd help. Of course I'd help. As I hung up the phone, a slow smile spread across my face. She thought her little sob story was the perfect bait, a clever way to reel me back into her web of drama and manipulation. She had no idea she wasn't the one setting the trap. I arranged a meeting with the supposed blackmailer at a quiet, secluded park cafe. I told Sarah to wait in her car a short distance away, where she could see everything but not be seen. I wanted her to have a front row seat for the drama she thought was about to unfold. She was practically buzzing with anticipation, probably imagining me swooping in like a white knight, ready to fight her battles. She pictured a tense confrontation, maybe a heated argument, all culminating in me rescuing her from this manufactured crisis. The thought of her sitting there, so sure of her own genius, was almost intoxicating. She believed she was pulling my strings, but she was just a puppet in a play I had written long ago. The blackmailer, a friend of mine named Mark, arrived right on time. As he approached my table, Sarah must have leaned forward in her seat, expecting fireworks. Instead of threats or angry words, Mark extended his hand and I shook it firmly. A look of complete confusion would have washed over her face as we exchanged friendly greetings and sat down for coffee like old pals. The blackmail was a complete fabrication, a story I had orchestrated from the very beginning. I had suspected she would try something like this to get back into my life, so I decided to beat her at her own game, using her predictable tactics against her. The trap wasn't for me, it was for her. After my cordial meeting with Mark, I walked over to her car. The smug satisfaction she had been wearing was gone, replaced by a mask of bewilderment. Before she could even form a question, I laid it all out. I told her I knew the blackmail was a lie from the moment she called. I explained how her patterns of manipulation were so painfully obvious that I could predict her every move. I didn't end our relationship because I was angry or hurt. I let her go so she would have enough freedom to expose her true character to the world, and most importantly, to herself. I gave her the rope, and just as I expected, she eagerly fashioned her own noose. Her carefully constructed facade of a victim shattered into a million pieces right there in her driver's seat. There were no tears, no apologies, just the blank, hollow stare of someone who had been utterly and completely defeated by their own deception. I didn't say another word. I just turned around and walked away, leaving her alone with the ruins of her lies, finally free of her for good.